This little guy is cute enough to steal your heart and your wallet. The mini Labubus start around $50 and the larger ones can climb to $1,000. So while I wait for the day I bring home a real Labubu designed by the amazing Casing Lung, I thought it would be fun to make my own version with a few unique touches. Mine probably won't follow me on every adventure, but honestly, would you really take your medium-sized $300 worth Labubu along for the ride anyway? I'll let you think about that one while we get creative with paper mâché clay, some foam, a bit of paint and a whole lot of faux fur. Alright, first step, we are making a kind of oval head shape out of paper mâché clay. And if you want to make your own clay the way I do, I've got a recipe on my channel, you can check that out anytime. I start with a piece of foam as the base for the head. I don't want anything heavy like a big ball of aluminum foil because then the body would also need to be made of foil just to hold the head upright. Foam keeps things lightweight and it's much easier to balance. I cover that foam with aluminum foil, seal the joints with masking tape and then I roll my paper mâché clay as thin as possible with a rolling pin. I wrap it around this little head and smooth the seams with water until everything blends seamlessly. Super satisfying. Now on this channel we mostly work with paper and cardboard, so I wasn't planning to use oven baked clay for this, but honestly polymer clay would have made my life easier. Fewer imperfections, already comes in colors, and you save time on painting. But paper mâché clay wins because it's inexpensive, eco-friendly, and honestly it's just fun. I press into the clay with my fingers to create eye sockets, then reinforce the contours with a coil of clay that I blend down smoothly. For the mouth, I form a long coil, curve it into a semicircle under where the nose will go, blend it in, and then I skirt tiny teeth underneath. The nose is just a small smooth out triangle placed right between the eyes at the base of their line. I didn't count the original teeth or measure anything. The goal here isn't to counterfeit a Labubu, but to show you how paper mâché can be used to create practically anything you can imagine. And honestly, even with just the eyes and mouth, you already feel the Labubu vibe, even though mine is definitely far from accurate. I also make sure to sculpt a soft bump above the mouth and another above the eyes. The original has this subtle puffiness for the eyebrows and muzzle. At this point, most of the main features are in place and I'm really happy with how it looks. Let the head dry and in the meantime, let's work on the hands and feet. This is the part I always dread. Sculpting hands just feels complicated to me every single time. I make the armature from aluminum foil, then cover it with clay. You will see I make a sort of triangular puffy sleeve shape at the base of each hand. That's intentional. It helps later when inserting the hands into the fabric. I made the feet off camera, but it's the same exact process. Foil first, clay on top, and let them dry. Now that everything is dry, let's build the foam body. I grab a big enough piece of foam to trace the body using the head as a reference for proportions. Remember, Labubu has a big head, so I keep mine oversized too. I take some wire to create the armature. I poke a hole in the neck area using a pointy tool, in my case a screwdriver with a sharp tip, and I insert a piece of wire folded in half. The wire alone won't stay put, so I bulk up the base with aluminum foil where the neck meets the body. Then I bend the wire upward and twist it around to create a small thoracic cage. I cut the foam body out, carve a hole in the center for the wire structure, and I insert the hands and feet into the foam arms and legs. So now that it's dry, time to paint. You cannot cover that grey color of paper mâché clay in one coat, trust me. So I start with a light skin tone, let that dry, and then I add a slightly darker beige from a skin tone paint set. Now it's time to give Labubu a proper little belly. I cut out a second belly piece of foam to layer on top. My foam was too thick, so I sliced it in half to get something more realistic. I trimmed the edges so it blends nicely with the original body shape. This is the part I love. Foam skirts so well. Honestly, I prefer it to polyester stuffing. Stuffing is harder to control. You really need to know exactly how your fabric will react. You need to know the shape it's going to have. Foam is flexible. You can trim it and adjust it as you go. It's like sculpting. You see me rotate the character constantly, trimming all the sharp edges, then I go back to the belly again to refine the shape. Even with the foam belly piece, it still didn't feel round enough to me, so I grabbed some plastic bag scraps, rolled them into balls, and stuffed them into the cavity inside the belly foam. It's perfect. Then I stitched the belly prosthesis onto the main body. And don't worry, you don't need fancy tools. My sewing kit is from Amazon and costs only a few dollars. You don't need advanced skills either. Just stitch from one side to the other, always coming back up through a hole close to the last one instead of jumping far across. Time to make the iconic Labubu hood. I could have made it earlier, but painting the back of the head would have been impossible. So I traced the back of the head onto foam, cut it out, and divide it horizontally into 2 pieces. Then I make a long band that will wrap around the temples. I trim the ends of that band into points so they won't bulk up under the chin. I don't cut one big piece for the hood, I assemble it from 3 separate foam pieces. This is the only way to make it fit snugly without relying on a ton of hot glue, which I avoid because it's not durable. I stitch the first half circle around the back of the head where the neck meets the base, then stitch the second half circle on top to create the top of the hood. Since the head is round, this 2-piece system lets it curve nicely. Then I attach the side band. Stitching might seem annoying, but honestly, it's necessary for a clean professional look. I see tutorials promising no sew plushes with entirely hot glue seams, and I'm sorry, but the result is often messy and not durable. We don't wear clothes made of hot glue seams for a reason. If you are already spending hours making a doll, you may as well do proper finishing and learn a skill in the process. The glass eyes finally arrived and they are so beautiful. The link is in the description if you want the same ones. I place them inside the sockets and add fresh paper mâché clay to contour and secure them. A little more trimming and the foam body is officially ready for fabric. Now let's add some magic. The fur. I bought this beautiful rainbow faux fur from Hobby Lobby to give my Labubu a unique look. For the hood, I switched to fabric instead of foam. I used 2 pieces, a rounded back piece and a long side band. Fabric curves beautifully, so you only need 1 back piece this time. I cut little slits all around the rounded piece to help it shape around the head without wrinkling. I make it slightly larger than needed and tuck the excess under the foam hood to hide the edges. This step takes some patience, but the transformation is incredible. I start with the belly piece, I stitch it on, then I continue section by section, belly, legs, arms. I now trace the ears on faux fur, cut them out and insert bendable iron wire inside so they are sturdy and posable. Then I stitch each ear closed and add a little inner pink piece for extra cuteness. I attach them to the hood and I use double thread stitching for strength. Now it's time to fix the cracks from earlier. I sand everything carefully. I use an 800 grit sandpaper for that. It's great for smoothing, but it leaves tiny scratches. So I cover those with joint compound applied with my fingertip, and once it's dry, I repaint the skin tone. Artists keep on adjusting as they go. That's normal. Trimming, sanding, reshaping, it's all part of the creative process. Once the face is perfectly smooth, almost like latex, I add the final touches. I paint the nose pink to match the color scheme. For the cheeks, I layer several shades, pink wax crayon first, then sand colored crayon to soften the edges, then a blush tone marker applied to my fingertip before blending it onto the cheeks. Finally, I dab a vibrant orange marker the same way and use some skin tone paint to blend everything seamlessly. And voila, my Labubu is complete. I just need to add a matte varnish to keep the colors and texture protected. I'm honestly really proud of the result. What do you think? And the whole thing cost me only $8 for half a yard of fabric. Everything else was made from scraps and trash. But yes, I still want a real Labubu someday. This one was mostly for fun to show that you can create almost anything out of paper pulp. If you enjoyed this project, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more. I might design original outfits and accessories for this Labubu in future videos if that's something you are interested in. Truly, anything is possible. Share your ideas below and I'll see you in my upcoming Christmas craft tutorials.